If anybody has any questions throughout today's session, feel free to utilize the chat. I'll be running a list of questions so that we can address those at the end. I know there's a question. Brenda's having trouble connecting. Just when you join to the meeting, sorry, just some logistical stuff. When you join the meeting, you have to click join audio. Maybe I'll message her directly, but we'll get going. So like I said earlier, if anybody has questions throughout the session, feel free to ask. I'll be monitoring the chat and making sure everybody stays muted. So if everybody can make sure that their mic is off, it'll just help for a clearer recording. But yeah, oh, and my name is Amanda. I think I always forget to introduce myself at the beginning of each of these sessions. So if anybody has any questions, my name is Amanda. You can message me directly and I will assist. But I'll let Sharon introduce herself and we will get going. So welcome, Sharon. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sharon Ward, and that's the English name that I was given. However, my name is Ompag Misto Jikajetne Talawisi. In the Mi'kmaq language, that means White Buffalo Woman. And Anishinaabe is Kabadik Kwangate Nanishnakas. Sounds like the tips of the feathers is my name. And I'm of the Crane clan. And I live in the, originally I'm from the Broken Head Ojibwe Nation here in Manitoba, otherwise known as South Beach Casino. And I work here at Anish as resolution health support worker as well as a knowledge keeper. So today I'd like to be able to share some of the things that I have learned regarding the Tipi. Anyway, before I begin though, I would like to smudge. I always find that it's always good to smudge before we start anything. It helps to clear our minds, our bodies, and our spirits. We're able to say good things and we're able to hear good things, feel good things with our hands, and walk a good road. Well, that one didn't want to start. Okay. I'd like to acknowledge where this teaching came from. This teaching came from Harry Charger, and Harry Charger is from South Dakota. He is the uncle to Orville Looking Horse, and when I had met him, he was 105, and when he had passed, he was 115. And he was a remarkable young man, as he would love to have been called, because he was a full soldier. And because he was a full soldier, he had a remarkable way of doing things. Anyway, when I talk about this TP teaching, how I came about it was they were having a Sundance, and they were putting teepees up. And these men were having a hard time putting up a teepee. And anyway, we were walking, Harry and I, and they approached him and they said, "We need to have help with this teepee. We can't seem to get it up." And Harry says, "Oh, and you're asking me?" He says, "Why are you asking me for?" He says, "It's as if I'm supposed to know everything around here." and and then he turned around and he says, "Why don't you ask her?" He says, "She's a woman. She'll know." And the reason why he said that was because that teepee represents a woman. Now, when we talk about that teepee, there are different things that happen within that teepee. There are different poles. The first pole that goes into this teepee represents faith. Now, we're not here to try and change people's spiritual belief. What we're saying is that the first thing in life, regardless of whatever it is that we do, we talk about our faith. And it doesn't matter what your faith is or what your religion is or what you believe. It's always about what it is that, because when you believe in something, it happens to combine with your mind, your body, your spirit, and your emotions. So when you have that faith, it helps you to overcome obstacles that are in your life. So the first one is always faith. And then there's another one that represents um, your honesty. And this one is the one that's in the back. That one represents change. And along with change comes courage. And the reason why we have courage with that is because you can't change unless you have the courage to look at it honestly and look at yourself completely inside, because you have to start from the inside out. Whenever a teepee is being made, it's always from the inside out. Now, as I'm busy talking about all these different things that happen here, there is a man that is going to run with these with a rope, and he's going to tie all of these together, and then he's going to wrap it around that pole of change, because everything that you have inside of you and within life has to do with the change that you do within. So that's the main, the backbone, the backbone. And the women are the ones who do that. We do a lot of that, because the next one that we talk about is going to be for choice. We make a lot of choices as we go through life. Sometimes we make good choices, sometimes we make bad choices. Now, don't fret about your bad choices, because we learn from both. We learn from the good things, we learn from the bad things. The bad choices you make in life are going to be your greatest teachings, because those are the ones that you're never going to forget. And when you make a bad choice, you just ask Creator to forgive you, because and you ask Creator to help you to forgive yourself, because we're harder on ourselves than we are on other people. When other people hurt us, oh, we're mad at them, we're resentful towards them. Sometimes we want revenge on them because it's inside of us, right? And for us some of us that have worked on a lot of those issues, we're able to let those things go. But sometimes we get stuck. So that's where our faith comes in again. Because with our faith, we got to ask Creator and those grandfathers, those ancestors, our spirit helpers, the angels, however you want to call them, right? We got to ask them for help, to forgive ourselves for the mistakes we have made, because we're already forgiving people for the things that they put us through. Okay? Now, inside here, there are going to be 13 poles on the inside of the teepee. These are only the first 4, and courage and change are together. There's kindness, uh, compassion, because sometimes we have to have compassion, especially for those that are struggling, because we know what it's like to go through those hard things and those hard times. So, with the kindness that we have inside of our heart and with the way that we practice our life, we have to start with ourselves first for all of these things. Then we can start doing it for others. Because how can you help others if you haven't helped yourself? We need to look at from inside here and in here to let it out this way, so that we can have that healing that we need in order to go on. So these are the different things that are there. So far we're at 6. Okay. And understanding, the understanding of yourself and what you've gone through, as well as the understanding of others. Because when we go back to the compassion, when we start using these things to see ourselves and what we had to go through, because a lot of times, like, sometimes we try to lay judgment on other people. Well, we really can't, because we haven't walked through their shoes. We don't understand why they are making those choices. All that we know is why we're making the choices that we're making. So the only one that you can actually judge is yourself and your own choices. And you can listen to other people and why they went through what they went through. But we can't judge them for whatever choice that they made. That's where that understanding comes in. Understanding what you yourself have gone through, and also understanding that we can't judge others, but we can help them, help them to understand themselves and to go on with life, because like life is sacred. I'm always going to say that life is sacred. So we also have respect. To treat each other with respect, because we need to bring that old way of life back into play. A lot of our people, because of residential schools, have lost a lot of these things. So if we start practicing them ourselves, then those things are going to come back into our lives, and also it'll affect our children and our grandchildren and our great grandchildren, because we want that old life to be back. And how can we have it with all of the new things that are going on? All that we can do is practice each and every day these things. Now, not everybody's going to be perfect at it. Even myself, I'm human, just like everybody else is. Even though I'm telling you these things, sometimes I make a mistake and I fall. So when I do that, I ask Creator and the grandfathers to forgive me, but also to help guide me, so that these things won't happen again, that I won't go through that again, but I'll go through something different that I could fall again, right? Because life is like that. It gives us ups and downs. It's never ever going to be the same every day, because if it was, we would be bored. It's just like watching the same old show or movie every day. Can you imagine like being stuck in that movie called Groundhog Day, having every day being the same? Even him, he tried to do it differently. But anyway, these are the things. Two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. We have the respect. Respect is very, very important, because when you learn to respect yourself, it's easier to learn to respect others, regardless if other people are walking a good road or a bad road, because we're not here to judge them. We're here to help ourselves so that our family members see us walk a good road and they will choose to walk that good road along with us. Okay? Caring and sharing again. To care about somebody is to listen, to share with somebody is to speak. But when you're talking about yourself, you have to be kind and care about yourself. Caring means that if I have medication that I'm supposed to take, or if I have to take care of my feet a certain way, every day I do that for me, because I care about myself, because I care about how I'm going to leave this world, and I don't want myself to be sicker than what I already am. I have to show myself that these things are all important. So I show that caring to me and sharing things. I share some things, I share my life experiences, because that's all that I can share sometimes. Because I'm rich, but I'm not that rich. I'm not rich that way. Money doesn't really mean much. It just means to survive. What really means is life and life experiences. But I share the things that I know, that I understand, the things that I've been through, the things that I've learned along the way. So I share those things. And I have to be able to understand myself as well, and to know that these things that I'm sharing are a good way. Okay? Okay. Now, a lot of people think that courage is the same as being brave, but it isn't. Courage is to get up the, the courage inside of you to be able to do that change, to make that change. To be brave is to face something head on, to be able to overcome things that are in your life in a brave way. Some people will say that's a man, but it's also a woman, because it's something that we have inside of us, right? Because courage is strength, but to be brave is to go ahead with it. Like our men, the reason why we call them braves was because when they went to war a long time ago, they knew that they were already going up against something that was different, because mokamon, those long knives, those long guns, those fire sticks, they were able to take down 2 buffalo with one shot. And some of those braves All they had was a tomahawk or a club. Some of them had bows and arrows, but not everybody did. Some of them had bones that were made out into knives, and they were only good at hand to hand combat because the only thing that was different was to throw the tomahawk right at a distance or to hit them with a bow and with an arrow. And if you didn't have those things handy, then it was just hand to hand combat. And our people were good at hand to hand combat. So they had to be brave in order to know, that they were facing today and that today was going to be a day that could be the last. Okay. Love. Love is another one because we can go around, we can say, oh, I love you. And we can say, oh, I love you and you and you and you. But what does love really mean? Love isn't just a word. Love is something that you actually feel deep inside of you. There's different kinds of feelings, like caring, to care about someone, to be kind to someone. Most of these are feelings. Like even honesty. If you're not being honest, right? When you go to tell somebody that lie, you can feel it because you know that in your heart that it's not true, right? People don't understand that part of it though. There's a lot of things that, like these things, we can actually feel them inside of us. And understanding, if you don't understand, then you're kind of confused, right? So there's a lot of different things. And if you're like confusion can bring you into all different kinds of other feelings. It can bring you into feelings of anger, disappointment, right? To frustration and stress. There's a lot of things that it can go either way. So it's up to us to try and balance these things. So when you love somebody, you have to start by yourself. Love yourself first. Now, when I first heard about that, they said, like my one of my teachers said to me, he said, if you can face yourself in a mirror, look in a mirror and tell yourself every day, I love you, and really mean it, then you're going someplace good because you're going to make a lot of positive changes because you love yourself. I love myself the way I am. That's all I need to know. Because as long as I love myself the way I am, I know where I'm going to go. That's how he used to say it. So anyway, love is becoming just a word, like to say to somebody, I love you, but to truly mean it in your heart. See, because if you love somebody, you love them unconditionally, no matter what they do, right or wrong. Even yourself. Love yourself unconditionally. Because we make mistakes. We're human beings. We're not invincible. There's nobody in this world that's perfect. Which is why we always make a mistake on purpose when we do our beadwork or our sewing. We do that to allow people to know that there is no such thing as perfect. Okay? To have wisdom. A lot of people think that, some people will think that they've been called stupid so many times in their lives that they don't have any wisdom. But there is no such thing as being stupid. There's a thing as being stubborn, right? And I know that one really good because I'm really stubborn. But I made myself go through a lot of hard things because I was stubborn. So I had to learn what wisdom was all about. And it wasn't as easy as I thought it was. Because to be wise is to be able to make a lot of changes in your life. All the mistakes that you made in your life, to change them into positive things. Because for a long time, from being a kid to adulthood and through most of my adulthood, I made so many mistakes because I thought I knew the best. I was smart, right? I knew everything. And I had to learn a lot of hard lessons because I didn't know everything. But I believed that I did. And I suffered a lot because I made my own bed. I made my own mistakes. I made my life hard. And it didn't have to be like that. I could have listened. But that was my choice, right? Like I said, choice is very powerful. All these things are very powerful. Now, when they do this, they have the 13 teachings. 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this now and show you. Because all of these things are inside of a woman. See, when they say that women bring life into the world, they say women bring life into the world, they're not just talking about the physical life. They're talking about all of these things because as a child is growing, the thing that we are supposed to be doing is to try and direct our children in this way, to teach them by example and by living this life each and every day. Because we have a sacredness about our way of life. We live by 23 laws, and we need to be able to walk this road. It's not just something that we pray about. It's something that we truly have to live. And truth, we need to learn to walk in our truth. Stand in our truth, walk in our truth. And it's not easy because in a world that's created out of lies, and that's all we hear are lies. It's really hard to talk about our truth, and it's really hard to walk in our truth. So we fall, we stumble, sometimes we even crawl because sometimes when you tell it the truth, people don't want to hear the truth because sometimes it's really hard to hear the truth. So anyway, the women are the ones that are supposed to teach all of these things to the children. But before she can do that, she has to get dressed. So when the woman puts on her dress, this is what she looks like. Because these flaps are the ones that'll direct where the wind goes, whether the wind comes in or that keeps the wind out or the rain. But it's usually it's the woman with her hands up like this, praying to Creator, praying for the things that she needs and that she needs for her family, for her children, her grandchildren, because women need to think 7 generations ahead. How is this going to affect my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, and so on and so forth? Because we need to think of that. Like, we're busy making mistakes. Sometimes we do it out of greed, sometimes we do it out of anger, resentment, right? But we got to start thinking about how those things are going to affect our families. Because our thing is to take care of our families. Because life is sacred. And we as women are caregivers. And we're supposed to take care of that life that's sacred. Life is so sacred that it's up to the woman to take care of the home fire. Women take care of their own fire, which is the home fire. We use that fire to cook for our children. We use that fire to keep us warm. We use that fire to boil the water, sometimes to take care of wounds, sometimes to take care of other things. But that fire is sacred because it has to do with the family, and we need to take care of it. Because if we don't take care of that fire, who's going to take care of it? It's a woman's fire. The only other individuals who can take care of this fire is a two-spirit, right? That's what makes two spirits sacred as well. So anyway, that fire needs to be taken care of, needs to be watched over and protected. It needs to be respected, just like how we respect our bodies and that doorway where that life comes in. Because that doorway is the doorway for our children to go in, our people to come out, right? That's life. Just like when we're ready to give birth, we're struggling, we're fighting, because our spirit has got to go into the spirit world, right? The pain that we experience goes in, retrieves that child and helps that child to come into us, that spirit of that child, the connectiveness of that child inside of a woman. So these women are supposed to be taking care of things. But a lot of people think that this is only about women. It isn't. This is also about relationships, because when you walk in balance with all things, your partner's got to walk in these things too, right? And together, that's the reason why it's a man that ties everything together, is because that man has got to walk in that sacredness as well. In order to bring balance within this home and within that woman for this family, he needs to provide for them and to take care of them, to protect them. Because it takes both man and woman to be able to do this. And even if you know, it's not something that's debatable. It's something that is sacred. And that's why a man and a woman don't walk one ahead of the other unless they are in war and they want to protect the others from an ambush. The man will walk ahead of the woman, because the man will make sure that if there's an ambush, that woman can make it into the bush with the children. Because to survive is sacred. Survival is at the utmost. These here are the 7 sacred teachings. Again, you'll hear that about the kindness, the courage, the honesty, the truth, um, the love, and the wisdom. Those are all those things, because they have to be there in order for you to connect with Creator. right? So when you connect with Creator and you think about all these things, what you're doing is you're thinking about life. When you think about life, you're not thinking just of yourself. These here are the children. They are the grandchildren and the children. Those are the ones that will ground this woman. They will help her to stay grounded and connected to Mother Earth, her children and her grandchildren, which is why when the residential schools took away the children, the women started to fall because those are the ones that helped her to find that balance in life and connect her to ground her to Mother Earth and Grandmother Moon, right? The sacredness of the energy that flows, that cycle was broken. So the thing now is to try and find a way of repairing this. So the best thing to do is to take care of the children in this manner, to take care of yourself in this manner so that they see you walking in a sacred road. And then to speak in this manner. And to also try and help find a way of helping these families to overcome the obstacles that they had experienced from that traumatizing point of residential schools. Boarding schools is what they call them in the States. And our children are sacred as well. So to bring back our children back to us, because the children should never be taken away from their mom and dad, from their families, because they need to know who they are, where they're going in life, and they need to have that direction so that they are not lost, so that they can start gathering those teachings that our people have had for so many generations. And we need to continue on in this way because everything is sacred and everything is about survival. And the thing is that Harry Charger, he always used to say, I don't know. He says, look at all these teepees here. He says, all these teepees. He says, they're all warriors. He says, you can see the designs on the teepees because the designs tell everything about the individuals that are inside, right? But he says, all of these teepees, they're all warriors. He says, what does that tell you? He says, are all of our women becoming warriors? He says, or are the men just becoming women? He says, the men need to make a stand to be who they are, to be able to walk in this road, to be able to be the providers and the protectors that they need to be, so that their families can live long, that they can live a sacredness of life. And with this woman, if they're lucky enough to have the right woman, they can walk that road together and they can live a good long life together. And they can actually live with love and wisdom and being brave. They can have that understanding. They can pray together. They can be honest. They can have the courage to change things within their own family grouping through the choices that they make in life, with the kindness and the compassion that they have and the understanding of what that life is, with the respect that they have for all things, including themselves. That caring, that sharing can make the world a better place, one family at a time. Being brave, love, and wisdom. So life is sacred. And inside, this is where love is inside that home. There's no anger, resentment, right? There's just that kindness, and that caring, and to learn to talk and communicate, right? Harry used to tell me, he says, people don't know how to communicate. He says, they don't know how to talk. Because how can you talk when you're taught to be quiet, shut up, don't say nothing. He says, when a baby, when a baby is born and the baby starts going goo goo gaga, making all kinds of noise, we as people go up to them and say mama, 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 dada, dada. And we want them to talk. So when the baby starts talking, you go, mama, dada, right? We're all proud. Then the child starts getting bigger. The child turns around, falls down, and is crying, and is, mama, dada. And we're sitting there saying, shh, quiet, don't say nothing. But it's because that's a different cycle, right? That's what we were learned. That's what we were taught. We need to try it when we catch ourselves doing that, because you're not going to do it right away. When you catch yourselves doing that, you got to say, hey, I gotta listen to what's happening. I need to know what's happening so that I can react in a better way, because we need to act, because there's act and react, right? So whenever you have an action, there's a reaction. So if we want the right reaction from other individuals, we need to know how to act or how to handle that action so that they can react in a better way. And how can we do that? We can't. Everybody is different. But when you understand yourself and what would you do in a situation like that, you're better equipped to handle their reactions. But you need to have that opportunity, right? See, in this kind of a life, there is no room for for the negative things. So it's good to try and help yourself to purify your mind, your body, your spirit, and emotions. I don't know if you guys use sage or sweetgrass or just tea, or maybe just having meditation of a prayer to try and find that balance within inside of you so you can walk that sacred road. Because right now we don't have too many teepees except for the women wearing the skirts and the shirts, right? And carrying these things. So we do have a home though, and our homes are our teepees. They may not be able to move around except for the contents and us, but we can learn to be able to do things in a good way so that we can help ourselves, so we can help our children and our grandchildren. Because that's what it's about, right? 7 generations. Everything that you do in this generation is going to affect those children and grandchildren, great grandchildren for the next 7 generations. Even if those children, grandchildren, great grandchildren that are nieces, nephews, cousins, if you don't have children of your own, because you're still the grandmother or the aunt or the uncle, right? So everything that we do affects them as well. It's not just our own, because it takes a whole bunch of teepees, whole community to raise a child. And right now, we ourselves are just starting to wake up and to learn these things. So we can't say that, oh, I knew that, because we're just learning. We're just starting to practice this way of life because it was asleep for so long and these things were away from us for so long. And now that we're starting to learn them, go ahead, learn one thing at a time. Don't try and run with a bunch of sticks, right? like all these teepee poles. Don't try and run with all of them because you're going to fall down. It's not easy. Do one at a time. Take your time. Go slow. Life is sacred. And when you're doing the best that you can to change your life for the better for yourself, don't say I'm changing because of my partner, changing because of my kids, changing because of this, because of that. Do it for yourself. Do it for yourself first, because it's a beautiful thing when you can, right? And it's by choice. Don't just do it because I'm telling you to change, because it's not up to me. Choice is up to you. I can't tell you to go ahead and change. I can tell you, change your clothes. Those ones are dirty right now. Change them to something cleaner. Or you have a rip in your jeans, right? The thing is that choice is sacred as well because Creator gave us that gift that we can change those things ourselves because we want to. You see, I can't go and tell people that you have to do it this way because there is no such thing as have to. You can go anywhere in this list and start wherever it is that you want, right? Maybe some of yous already have because there's always a beginning and an end, but there's never an end without a new beginning. So when you change something from a negative to a positive, you're opening up your life so that you can make changes in a positive way for yourself and your family. Because we've all made mistakes. There's no such thing as an individual who's perfect. I've gone through drugs and alcohol. I've had to fight my way. That's what I mean. Like I've had to crawl to find my way back to this. I also knew these teachings from when I was a child, but because of the road that I was on with the drugs and the alcohol, I had to relearn these things. So I'm very grateful that Harry Charger was that one that came into my life to talk to me about these things. And the one thing that he said above all things, because like I said, he's a fool soldier. He says the greatest gift that you can have is when you finally do enough healing that you can laugh wholeheartedly. Because laughter is a gift from Creator as well. And for us, we love to laugh. I had to learn what a fool soldier actually was. They're people that are so brave that they go into battle, and you know what? They don't even need to have a weapon. They go out there and they're clowns, right? They're hayoka, they're clowns. They love to make people laugh, and people start laughing, and then they start forgetting why they're even there, why they're even angry, or why they're even fighting, right? And then that's when our people go in and turn around and are able to do battle, right? But the full soldiers are very important people, and I find myself very fortunate to have had him as one of my teachers. Even though he used to say the best teachings you can get are from women, because I learned most of this stuff, he says, from my grandma, and it was really nice to be able to meet him and to be able to understand these things. So anyway, I'm going to open the floor in order to hear some questions. And before I can continue on, I'd like to make sure that everybody is on the same page, that you understand things before I do anything else. Okay? So if anybody's got a question, you feel free to either raise your hand and ask, or just go onto the chat, and Amanda will be the one who asks for you if you don't feel like asking yourself. and it could be about anything on here. Okay.
Yeah. So one question in the chat, Ashley asks, the list that you have on the right there, you have 12 things listed, but you said 13 polls. Is there something missing? I think you have
Yes.
truth
Yeah.
on top. Yeah.
Self, because most people forget about themselves.
That's
Okay.
true. Yeah. I think during COVID, everyone, well, I know for myself, I struggled to find ways of caring for your mental health because you find yourself all of a sudden at home or like just on your own a lot more, and you're kind of faced with having to find ways of caring for yourself because you're more aware of it. um, but yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. And not only that, if you don't care for yourself, if something was to happen to you because you're not caring for yourself, who's going to help these little guys?
Hmm.
Who's going to help the other teepees? Because you're important. There's a reason why people are born, and Creator knows that everyone is sacred. And we're all given a job to do. We just need to find out what that job is, right? And understand why we're doing it. But we are all to help one another, because I can't survive on my own. I need other help, other people to help me too. Just like each and every one of us, we all need to help one another. But we need to help ourselves, because like when an individual is sick, they need to ask for that help. They also need to say what it is that's wrong with them, right?
Hmm.
'Cause we're not mind readers. We can't we can't think or understand what other people are going through or experiencing or feeling. We think we can, or we can feel. Those that are gifted can feel a little bit or know a little bit or whatever. But the thing is that we need that individual to say, to talk. So communication is very, very important. Even when we talk about relationships, right? The communication is what we need. We need to learn to talk. We need to learn to have that truth,
Hmm.
right? Uh,
If anyone would like to speak a question, you're welcome to unmute your mic at this time. There hasn't been any questions in the chat that I've noticed. No questions, just the one. But if anybody has a question they'd like to speak, you're welcome to unmute yourself. I'll wait a few seconds.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead, Beryl.
Hi. I really appreciate this teaching. I didn't grow up very traditional. Grew up in a community. Grew up with my family. Had a lot of problems. But this teaching, that the TP teachings, is it going to be recorded that we could use to, to reflect back on and to show my children and my cousins and stuff like that? Can we use this as a tool as well, or is that not allowed?
no, it's going to be, as long as it's being recorded, and we are being recorded from what I understand. And you can come back onto the Anish website. It won't be posted right away because we have to go through a system ourselves. But
Okay.
once it is, once it is posted, it'll take a few days, and you can watch it as often as you need to, or as often as.
Hmm.
Mhm. I've
I want
shared
to
the
show
link
my
again in the
grandchildren.
chat.
You know, I want to show my grandchildren, and I would like to use it over and over again if I could, for my children and my grandchildren. And I'm from Muscogee First Nation in Saskatchewan, and we have a lot of people that are struggling that could you really use this type of teaching. And uh, that's why I asked the question if we could use this as a tool for our like our programs in our community, and able to share it with other people.
Yeah, by all means, it's good because if I was to keep these teachings just to myself and not share it with others, then they will be once I'm gone. But the more that
Hmm.
I talk about it, now that I've shared it with you and each and every one of you, when you have those teachings, now that you know them, right? You have them. You can teach these to other people. Please, by all means, do, especially the little ones. They need to have these so because we don't want our people to be lost. We're already lost enough. If you look at today and how things are, we're very broken people. You know, we have a lot of wounds that we need to heal, but it's very important for us to acknowledge that we have so that these things are not lost forever, that we can bring back, just like that buffalo, you know, like they wiped out the buffalo thinking that we would die because we are buffalo people, right? We're buffalo people. And
Hmm.
we wiped out the buffalo, which is our main food source, that we would be wiped out too. But we didn't get wiped out. And not only that, the buffalo is back and it's growing and growing and growing. So just like these teachings, they were almost lost. Our people were brainwashed. And now they can learn these things and they can bring it back and they can share it as much and as often as they can with others so that they're not lost, because I got these things for free, right? I got them for free. I'm sharing them with everybody because I want this way of life to be out there for our children to know who they are, where they come from, so that that identity is not lost and that people don't think that we're just lazy, dirty savages, because we're not lazy, dirty savages. But mind you, I am a savage woman.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Listening to this, I did join a little late, and but I that's why I was asking about the recording as well, and I really appreciate everything that you're teaching us here today. Hi, hi.
Mhm.
Mhm. Thank you, Beryl. Um, Maybe we'll take a 5 or 10 minute break. It's 2 o'clock now. So if that's something that we can do, and then we'll come back and we can answer some more questions or continue if you'd like, Sharon.
Okay.
All right, we'll let everybody get some fresh tea or some fresh air, whichever, and we'll be back at, we'll say 10 minutes after 2. So,
Take your break. It's going to be good.
mhm. right, welcome back everyone. We'll get going again. Just a reminder that today's session is being recorded. So about the question earlier, it will be available on our website. I shared the link in the chat. So it's the inishcorp.ca website, and then there's a part of our website called our video library. So you're welcome to go there. There's also videos from all of our previous sessions that were recorded as well. So if you're interested in rewatching some of them, you're more than welcome, and you can also share those with your family and friends as well. Sharon, there is one question in the chat. Did you want to answer it now or at the end?
I can answer it now.
Okay, so the question is from Ashley. Her question is, do you visit schools to do teachings? She's currently working with her daughter's principal to indigenize the curriculum, and he was asking about getting a Tipi put up, and she would like to just make sure it's done the right way.
Mm-hmm. Because I'm also working with, I work with the Anish Corporation, you would have to come and ask Eva, which is my supervisor, and you just phone to the office here, and you'll talk to Amanda first. Amanda will connect you with Eva, and we can go from there. Okay, it's just gotta make sure that it's gone through the proper channels on my end as well. Okay.
Sharon's done some really great teachings with different organizations around Winnipeg, so that's something that she's really good at. There's just we just ask that you contact us just so we can let you know about any protocols that's required, and then also for scheduling to make sure that Sharon's available whenever you guys are. So yeah, she does speaking engagements. Well, any of our health support workers and knowledge keepers do speaking engagements for different organizations and groups if they're interested. So I'll put my email address in the chat if you would like to follow up. But other than that, I think that was the only question. So you're welcome to continue, Sharon.
All right. Now, a lot of times, like people don't know that a long time ago we were pictograph people. We never really had too much. I I guess we had syllabics, but did mostly everything in pictograph. Our pictures carried a lot of things. A lot of our ways of life, our names, our spirit names, even our clans and our areas where we were from. Now, the reason why Harry Charger said that there was a lot of warriors was because he started to notice that the teepees were decorated like men. They had buffalo skulls, they had horses, they had a lot of things that had to do with men. But inside the teepees are women. In our old way of life, if a woman ever divorced her husband and there was such a thing, all that woman had to do was to take her husband's shoes and put them outside the door and point them into whatever direction that man was to walk. Those things only happened if that man was mean to that woman or to her children, because women were considered sacred beings because they carry all of these teachings. They were well respected within the community. But women also used to have to address themselves in a certain way, in a certain manner. So when we decorated these teepees, right? We decorated them to talk about our family so people could recognize us. Not everybody is the same. Sometimes families had their own way of describing themselves through these paintings, through these pictures. And the Dakota people, they have a winter count. The winter count is to talk about what their family had experienced for that year. And they would do the painting on hides. So everything would talk about that man and that woman, not just about the man. So it brings a balance in life. See, like two spirited people, even though they're male and female, they walk in that balance, right? They walk in that balance. But with a couple, they have to walk to create balance so that they're walking together, so that their lives are in harmony. Like when we talk about harmony, a lot of people think that it's just music, but it isn't just music. It's about how that music makes you feel inside. And there's a lot of things that our people have that help us to walk in that balance. Like for instance, we have the hand drums, we have the rattles, but we also have the flute. The flute is very important to our people because that flute does a lot of different things. And our people need to know and understand what these things are. So when a woman decorates her side, she'll talk about her side and her husband's side. He comes from a different area because the leaves are different. They have a different way of doing things because the plants are different. Even though they are the same, they may be different colors. This one comes from this area, that one comes from that area. These things all have a meaning because it helps with the identity of the individual because we're all individual people. We're all different, even though it some things are the same. Now, when I talk about these teachings here, there's a lot of things that I didn't touch on the humility part, right? Humility is very important because humility helps us to understand that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to ask for forgiveness. If you don't have that humility inside of you and know how to be humble, right, then it makes it harder for us to walk. Because if you don't know what humility is or how to be humble, you're going to be up here like this, right? When that's not what we're trying to do. See, when I say my prayers and I talk to the Great Spirit, just like this woman is talking to the Great Spirit, I mention to the Great Spirit that I am only one of the many children that Creator has. Because we're all Creator's children. Each and every one of us. I'm not better than any of you, and you're not better than me. Even the children, we're the same. Because when we get old, we're going to be children again. Right? So we teach the children to respect, and we teach the older ones to respect those children. Because you're going to learn lessons from those children as well as you do the old people. We learn lessons from each other. May not be the same lessons, but they're there. And the energy that we share with one another. See, a lot of people don't seem to understand that it takes a lot of energy to put up this teepee. But all of these are also energy, right? And we need that energy because it goes back and forth, right? That energy goes back and forth. And when we talk about that, like, even the children, when the parents, if the parents are not in balance and the parents, um, say you bring something negative into your home, those children feel it. They know. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when I was younger, when I used to drink and party and do drugs and stuff like that, and I was into mischief, my children knew right away and they reacted on it because it started off as my energy and that's something that I gave to them. Then they would start misbehaving. I have one son that used to put holes in the walls. Today he's a contractor because I used to make him fix the holes that he put in the walls, right? But he had to learn to balance himself and his energy and not to pick up on mine. Because you see, children are, when they come into this world, they're still close to Creator. They still carry Creator's energy because Creator is talking to them still. Creator starts talking to them when they're inside the womb. So when those children are born into this world, for a long period of their time, they're still with Creator. So they're still very sacred and they're still very learning. Like, I think I said that wrong. They still learn a lot because they are learning. And they're learning from Creator as well as us. So they pick up on the energy that's around them. So sometimes if children are misbehaving, you got to stop and think, is it because they're having a bad day or is it because I'm having a bad day? Or were they near somebody who was having a bad day? Even dogs. If you ever seen a dog, you ever see a dog and he shakes right after you pet him or somebody pets him, right? And then he starts shaking. Well, you know what that dog's doing is he's trying to shake off the negative energy because dogs don't want to carry that. So that's what they're doing. Just like water, right? They shake it off. That's what they're trying to do because animals understand energy a lot easier and better than what we do. Like, people think that everything revolves around us because it just revolves. But no, it doesn't. There's a lot of factors that cause things to be like that. Energy first comes from the sun. Energy comes from the water, from the earth, from the rocks. Energy comes from the moon, the stars, right? As a matter of fact, people wonder, where did all that water come from before life began on the earth, right? Why was this place so full of water? You know why? Because it came from asteroids, it came from meteors and comets that were hitting the earth and they broke off and they were carrying water and other orgasms or organisms. Organisms. I think that's how you say it. I'm still not very good at English, so please forgive me. But yeah, so those things came from out there. Just like, it creates something new. So when we start working on ourselves and our energies, then we can start understanding others and theirs. And then we can try and help them to understand their own energy and why they are the way that they are. But like the winter count, going back to this, then they can start understanding why they are the way that they are. What is this family about? Because you see, people want to know, they want to know, get to know you, right? They want to get to know you. But they don't have to get to know you personally. They know you who you are by the way that you decorated your teepee. So people get to know you by the way you decorate your life and how you do things. And one of the things that people used to say to me is they used to say, "Oh, Sharon, how come when the kids were all sent outside, you never went? You just stayed?" And I said to them, "Because I needed to learn why those adults were the way that they were. I needed to learn why they were saying the things they were saying, why they were doing the things that they were doing. And how do I do that? How do I learn that? Just by looking, watching. That's how you learn, watching what they do. And then with these three fingers here, they point back at you, always. So there's a lot of different things that we need to understand about ourselves. When you understand yourself, you'll be able to understand other things in life. I remember when I first sobered up and started to walk this road, and I started to work on myself through my healing journey. And I had gone for an assessment, and what came out of that assessment was that I was informed that I had at least 1 to 2 years of university in the field of psychology. And then I was asked, "Well, did you ever go to university?" And I looked at them, "No, at that time I didn't. I never went to university, not a physical university. The only university that I had gone to was the Universal School of Hard Knocks. That's the only one that I went through. But because I was looking at me, I was able to understand a lot of things differently. And that's all that psychology is. Basically, is to look at yourself, to understand why you do things. Then you can understand why others start to do things like that. But you'll never be able to fully understand because everybody has got their own reasons, right? But you understand enough where you have that respect for others. That's all that you need, right? And right now, we need a lot of prayers, which is why this teepee is there. Pray. My grandma used to say to me that we needed a lot of prayers up in the 2000s, the year 2000s, because things were going to get harder. Things are going to be like she must have seen all of this already, all the things that we're experiencing, and there's still more to come. But if you have your faith, foundation of faith, you know you can get over anything because there's nothing that creator, the grandfathers, grandmothers, those angels, right, the energies of the world, they're not going to leave you if you understand your faith, regardless of whatever your faith may be, because no two people are going to be the same, not exactly the same. Even twins, when you have twins, one will be negative, one will be positive, one will be a boy, one will be a girl. You know, it's always one will be different in one way or another, right? So even mirroring twins is even more extreme because they may look the same, they may sound the same, but inside their bodies, their organs are all the opposite of the other. The heart will be on the right side, and the other one will be on the left, right? Those kind of things. That's why they call them mirroring twins. You don't hear too much about those ones, but scientific world is really fascinated by them. Anyway, we need to be able to understand who we are and where we're going in life. So when you understand who you are and where you're going, or where at least you want to go, start setting up your goals to slowly make it. You're going to be able to achieve all things because there's nothing there to stand against you. Sure, you might have obstacles in that, but if you don't lose focus on what it is you truly want, you're going to be able to overcome those things. Nothing will pull you down. Mind you, there might be things that will try, right? And sometimes when I go through that, I call it a test of faith to try and test me to see if I'm going to fall, if I'm going to go back to drinking, doing drugs. But I have no. When you start realizing that, the friends that you have when you're in that world of drugs and alcohol, they're not really your friends. They just want what you have, which is usually a way of getting more drugs or alcohol, right? They don't really stand by you through thick and thin. Out of my drinking years, I only had maybe 2 people that I'm still communicating with that were true friends. Because when I was down and out and I felt like I was weak and I was going to give in, they were the ones who stepped in front of me and they said no. And, they told people, leave her alone. You're not bothering her. She's not drinking. She doesn't drink. They had to answer for me because I was sitting there going, and almost. So my faith, I had to go back home later on and I had to give thanks because my faith showed me that I do have 1 or 2 friends, at least true friends, and they're the ones that'll help you through things because we help each other. That's what survival is all about. When we talk about the traveling of these teepees and how they traveled and how they're structured, how they're put up, how they're taken down, they're all about survival. They're all about supporting one another because you can't do it on. It's very hard to put up a teepee by yourself. Totally. It's always good to have friends and families and that can help you to do these things because you need to have that. Like I can sit there and I can tell people how to put up that teepee, right? But I'm not strong enough to lift those poles. I'm not fast enough to run around with that rope. I'm not tall enough or agile enough to put these sticks in the top here. So I need somebody to help me with all of this. I can tell them how to do it, but that's about all I could do. I'll be good to put on the painting. I'll be good to put on the sticks on the bottom, right? And there's one other thing that I don't want to forget, and what that is there's usually always a feather on the teepee. And it's just like that woman when she's walking and she wears that feather in her hair. That strength of the eagle. Because the eagle is the strongest one that's out there. That eagle survived the Ice Age. And it was the first one with wings, like with feathers to come out. So that eagle is very strong, and that help of that eagle with that woman is the very most important thing, even though it seems like it's the most frivolous thing, because we need that strength and we got to understand we can't do it on our own, that we need that extra help, and we have to find, like, once again, the courage, right, and to be brave and ask for that help, because we can't do it alone. So there's a lot of different things that we need to look at and to remember. We never had an X to mark the spot. We had pictographs, just like this story here. Telling that story, we're pictograph people. If we were to go to court right now and challenge those treaties, we would win, because we don't really know who those people were that signed those treaties, because it doesn't say anything on the document of who they were. Because we were pictographed. So how come there's no pictures on those treaties to say who those people were? That's all that I have to say. And anyway, it's a beautiful day today. It's a beautiful day. And I'm just grateful to be me and grateful to be able to share this with you, because I really don't have, without you being here today and being a part of this, there wouldn't have been a need for me to be here and to share this. But I really enjoy teaching, because I also learn a lot from all of you. And I'm ready to take any more questions. If anybody's got any more questions for that.
Yeah, we can do our question period now. If anybody would like to speak a question, you're welcome to unmute your mic. Um, or if you'd like to type it into the chat, I can speak the question for you as well. I'll give it a second. I have a question. Sorry, I was just thinking about the steps of putting up a teepee, and I've heard different people say things about the way that the opening of a teepee faces, like the east versus west, and you know, the Cree put up their teepees facing one way, and the Anishinaabe put up their teepees facing another way. I was wondering if you could share a bit more about that.
Well, everybody has their reasonings for pointing the teepee doors in different directions. The thing is that we are people of the four different directions, and we don't normally have just one direction, because it was always safer to have people in different directions, because we have different directions for teachings. See, an individual may have a teaching that they have to face the east, because that's where the sun is coming up. The other one's facing west, that's because the sun's going down. Or whatever their reasoning is for each and every one of these directions. The fact remains is that we were all living in a village, right? Like a village, like a community. I don't know what else to call it. Many teepees, anyway, or wigwams. And anyway, when we lived amongst each other, not everybody faced the same direction, because then we would be missing things from the other directions. We when you we had everything in life is a circle. So when we had our communities and we had our villages, they were usually made in a circle. And they were usually, because we were in a circle, we couldn't just all face one direction. If otherwise we could be attacked from the side or the behind us or whatever, right? And or animals could come into the village. They can take off with our children, or they can hurt one of us. So how we used to keep an eye on things is that everybody had their own direction to look in. For whatever reason, they were raised to have that direction to start with, right? So that this way we were able to see from all angles which direction that there might be any danger coming at us. Because everything is about survival. Like I know that there's a lot of teachings in regards to individuals, but that's because they have their lodges for a different reason. Everybody has a law. Anybody who has a lodge has got their doorway facing a certain way because of those teachings that they are given, and they have to abide by those teachings. But when we're talking about this one here for life, this one had many different ways, the four directions, all four, right? And even some that are in between, just to make sure that our people were protected in a good way, that our children were watched over properly, because children are sacred. Life is sacred. So we had to take care of those things and we had to maintain those things, protect those things, and watch them. So we had to use all directions in order to do that. So the teaching that I'm giving today is really different than a lot of people because they're talking from um, their teaching. But for me, I was taught by a lot of old people, and they talked about survival. Survival was the main thing with everything. Their reasoning for a lot of things in life was survival because we all needed to survive. You can't survive if you're not watching all areas, like all the way around, right? Because you could be attacked, you can be hurt, your family could be hurt. So, anyway, that's the reason why I give this teaching and I don't talk about one specific direction. All right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Does anybody else have a question? Debbie in the chat says, thank you for such wonderful teachings. There's a few people who said thank you. I'll pass along our chat transcript to Sharon so that she can read everyone's comments.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, perfect. I wasn't sure if you could hear me or not. I just have a question about. Uh, I'm not even sure how to word it. You know how a lot of young people today are very liberal, I guess, sexually. They're identifying as transgender and.
Holly, I think your audio is kind of going in and out. It's hard to hear.
Oh,
Maybe if you hold
is
your mic.
that better?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm just wondering. A lot of people self-identify as transgender or feels gay, lesbian, whatever it may be, which is fine. But I'm wondering, how does that relate to the TP teaching? Because you know how we say there's roles for male and female. I've never heard of. I've never been given the teaching for like the two-spirited people. So I think it would be interesting. Just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I caught most of that. Did you catch it, Sharon?
No.
The audio was sort of moving in and out, but Holly's wondering about uh, the TP teachings in relation to like transgender to spirit, um, like the way that people identify themselves now is not, it's non-binary, so it's not just male or female. So how would you, because she also mentioned that different teachings talk about the men's role and the women's role, but like how would the transgender two spirit fit into that?
Well, the transgender two spirit, well, we call him he, she, or she, he. And they were very sacred people because they can do everything. They are not subject to just one way, they can do both ways. And just like in the teepee, they don't even need to have a partner, to be honest, because they have that balance within inside themselves. And if they do have a partner, it's easier for them to be able to walk that road, that sacred road. And the thing is that they would decorate the teepee a little bit different than what other people would, according to how they are, how they identify themselves. And we never used to shun two spirited people. As a matter of fact, you were really blessed if you had a two spirit in your community. And you were very, very, very blessed if you had them in your family because you would never be without. Like how the men go off and they're gone for a long period of time to go hunting, to do the things that they need to do. Well, who would be there to do the things for the men? Who is going to teach the children those things for the men? A two spirit can do both jobs. A two spirit can be a parent and a disciplinary and can be a teacher and yet learn. They can do a whole lot of things. See, because a lot of people they think, oh, well, there's no such thing as a two spirit, and they try to, I call it um, stereotyping racism because I don't believe in stereotyping them because uh, the sacredness of life is with instilled inside of them. They are very gifted people. A lot of people take them for granted, but they are very gifted. And there's a lot of things that they can do in life. And the roles that they had within the community were just fascinating. And there was big, huge responsibilities from raising the children to praying over the water, right? Because there's two kinds of water. People don't realize that. There's male and female plants, there's male and female rocks, there's male and female water. The male water comes from the sky, the female water comes from the earth, right? That's how it's created. We need to have that balance. That's why I talk about, the water that came from the universe, right? From all over, because there's a balance in life. But if it wasn't for the two spirit, because sometimes when things are out of balance, the two spirit can bring that back into place. And there's a lot of different things, like for the two spirit. Like this could have been a man who's dressed this way. That's okay. There's no rights or wrongs, and everybody was always respected. Everybody was always accepted, and we never had to hide them because they were so sacred that we were proud of them. We wanted people to see that we had people like this in our community because they were able to do so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I hope I've answered that question because the two spirit carries these teachings a lot easier than just one gender or the other gender. And they can do both. They can talk and teach these things, and they can also put this teepee up, no problem. And a two spirit can take care of the home fire as well as the sacred fire. They can pray over both waters, the male water and the female water. And a lot of people, they don't really understand that kind of stuff, but it's there. Okay, I hope I answered that for you.
Yeah, she says, thank you very much for the explanation. And yes, I agree, they are very gifted. Um, Another question is, how do you know if you're two spirit?
Two spirited people don't just become two spirited when they're teenagers, they have always been like that. And there's little things that they may or may not have done when they were growing up, like the attraction. Like I talk about quite often about my grandchildren. I can tell if they're going to be two spirited or not because they'll react even as a baby, as young as a year old. If they see a little boy or a little girl, like they'll be interested in one or the other, right? And I know if they're going to be bisexual if they're interested in both, right? And they'll swing around right in their chair and they'll try and get their attention of the other kids, right? And so there's that attraction like automatically from the time that they are small and they just grow up. Sometimes they try not to admit it because in the family, because nowadays it, like, you don't want to be like that, and they try to change their children, but so the child doesn't know what to do and they start to hide that fact, right, until they get older, and then they're kind of confused, they don't know what it is. But if you're two spirited, that's usually who you're attracted to. Are you attracted to men? Are you attracted to women? Or are you attracted to both? And there are some people like transgender, they like dressing like women, but they'd like to go with a man, right? Or they like dressing like men and they want to go with a woman. And there's nothing wrong with that because they're just being who they are. They're following their hearts. And that's where the sacredness begins, is because Creator gave us all a heart and everything is connected to that heart. When your heart stops pumping, everything else shuts down. Like if you lose if your mind isn't like you're say you died for a while and they brought you back and you've lost oxygen to the brain, so your brain is basically almost brain dead. Well, your heart can still go. You can live for a long time like that, for most people. But it's just the fact that if your heart stops, your mind can't continue to live. The rest of your body can't continue to live unless somebody performs CPR or they defibrilize you, right? So your heart is the biggest thing. That heart of yours will never lie to you. That's the way that Creator communicates to us. Is because like when you go in a store and you stick something in your pocket and you just kind of, does anybody know? Am I going to get caught? All right. But if you love somebody, that's hard to hide. If you care about somebody, that's hard to hide. But Creator is telling you, right, something. Because if you didn't have love, you wouldn't have Creator. Because all life comes from love. People don't realize that, right? It comes from love. And even children, when children are given away to two spirited people, that's a big blessing. Because that two spirited individual wanted to raise a child, wanted to have a child. And that's a way that they're not They're not lying to themselves about things. But even if they did have their own children, that's just another blessing. You know, everything in life is a blessing if we look at it like that. There are people there that can say, "Oh, my life was horrible, that this happened and that happened." I used to listen to people tell me stories about their lives, and I used to sit there and say, well, I never told it to them, but I used to say to myself, right, you guys think you had a bad life? I used to wish that somebody came along to help me. uh, and I never said anything, but I had a really, really hard life. I'm not going to tell you just how hard it was because we might end up having a hard life war here. We used to have a game like that when we were kids. You know, we used to say it was, oh, we were so poor. We had to sleep on a bed without a blanket. I would say, you had a bed, and somebody else would say, you had a blanket, right? And we try to beat each other at that. And then we finally, it's, I was so poor. We used to sleep on coats on a bed on a floor, and they'd say, you had coats. And you know, it'd go on and on and on until finally we're outside and we have nothing. We're just sleeping on the ground and we didn't have a blanket or a coat or nothing. And then we'd say, oh, must have been nice sleeping outside and under the moon as a blanket and stars are your blanket and a rock is grandfather rock is your pillow. Must have been a blessing. Yeah, it was a blessing. Now that's the final part of the game, right? But everybody's complaining about it first, you know, how hard life was. But two spirited people, they find a way of looking at things in a positive way most of their life, even though things are hard. And you know, maybe because I don't know where that term came from when they started talking to themselves about saying that they were gay. And I think it's because they were always laughing or finding a way of laughing at things that were really hard in life. And for me, I never see that the word gay as being something negative, but it's being something happy, right? They always found happiness. And that's why I think that they started calling themselves that because there's so many other names that they could have went by. But I've never known for them to be called anything other than a he, she, or a she, he. And they were nothing, there was nothing bad about that. There was always something that was celebrated for. Uh, so I hope I've answered that question.
So yeah, thank you for that, Sharon. And that was a great question, Lindsay. She says miigwech, yes. Um, does anyone else have a question they'd like to speak? You're welcome to unmute your mic. Um, somebody was wondering about the recording. Today's session is being recorded. It'll be available on our website in a day or two. I've shared the link in the chat, but I can reshare that right now. If you wanted to pull it up in your internet browser and just bookmark it, it's the same website I share almost every session. It's where we post all of our recordings. Um, did you have a question, Holly or Beryl?
I do. Hi, me again. Hopefully, you can hear me.
Sorry.
I'm just wondering the difference between, um, say, like the Tipi teachings and something that you would learn at a teaching lodge and how they're built, the structures. You know how you have like a learning lodge and it's built out of bark and it has all the poles and stuff too. I'm just curious.
I turned up my volume and I can hear your question, Holly. But for Sharon, Holly is wondering if there's a difference in the teachings of the TP teachings versus the structures of other types of lodges. So the example she used was a teaching lodge was made with bark, I think is what she said, or just like it's made differently. So are there other teachings for other types of lodges, I guess?
Yes, there's teachings for a lot of different lodges. Not in, the lodges are all different. There's stories of how these things began are really different. Like this is a story of a woman who was searching for life. And when she was searching for life, she thought of her children and her grandchildren. And when she traveled around, she started asking the grandfathers and the grandmothers in each direction that she went to. And she couldn't find those things in life that she was looking for. And those elders that were sitting in those directions, they weren't able to tell her that. All that they kept telling her is, you have that. You have that life inside of you. And then she would go back kind of puzzled and trying to figure out things, and she'd go to the next direction. And then they'd tell her the same thing, each one of those directions. Then finally she'd come across an old man and an old woman, and they sat at high noon, and they sat in the center. And it started to get hot, and they needed to have shade. So they started to put up that teepee, and that woman was the one who was telling them how to put that teepee up. And it was that old man and that old woman that taught her, as those poles were going up, what those teachings were. And then as they put the skirting on around her, and they made that fire, that sacred fire, and they put those pegs in to hold it. And then she went out and she put those pegs all around the bottom herself. And then the old man and the old woman turned around and told her, see, all this time you had all of these teachings. Now it's up to you, because you got 7 levels that you have to go up, 7 levels in life to meet Creator. Creator is the 8th level. Now you got to teach each and every one of these children and grandchildren that life and all the things that you know. So that's the teaching uh, for that teepee. And it's the eagle feather that helps her to remind her mind, what everything is. Because in her heart, she just has the love for the children and the grandchildren and the people. So that's the reason why that teepee teaching is there. It's just that it's too short of a story to tell you that way than it is for me to tell you one thing at a time. And then for those other lodges, they all have their own stories as how they began, how they became, and how they were built and why they're built. So yeah, it's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And Beryl, you had a
I have
question?
another question. Yeah, please. Thank you. So sorry. Um, I the question I have is now after today's session, and I know the recordings are going to be there, but if, as I start to walk on that sacred road, because I too struggle every day. Um, and is there any way that I could reach out to ask questions in the future? Like as I learn, and I know the recordings will be there, but if I need to speak to someone, is it possible to reach out to the facilitator? I guess.
Yes, yes, we have people here at the Niche Corporation that are willing to talk to individuals who may need our help. That's the reason why we have support workers, and we're open to everybody. So if you need to talk to somebody regarding anything, like We're also here for residential school survivors and their children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, day school survivors, and all their intergenerational 60 scoop, as well as murdered and missing men, women. Well, I like to say people because I don't like to discriminate about anybody. So I like to call them just murdered and missing people because, or indigenous people. I don't even like to say indigenous people because we're all people, right? And, but we're here to help the people to overcome those things in their lives. And we're willing to listen to whatever you want to say. And you just call the office and ask if you can speak to somebody.
Mhm.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. You, when I came on to listen, I was a little bit late. I'm sorry, but it's really touched me. Like this teaching today, and it filled a lot of the stuff I guess I didn't really understand or know, or you know, um, but I know I'm from Saskatchewan. I'm a Cree, and I really respect your teachings today. And I was thinking that when I meet somebody, I like what they have to say. I want to keep that that dialogue going with that individual. So I know there's probably tons of people in Saskatchewan. We even have our own TP teachings in our schools here, but it's the young people learning it, and it's us older people that are kind of still struggling with, and our community still struggling. And I think it's to take those TP teachings now out into the community, now to our adults or older people. And yes, I very, very, very thank you very much for all what you've shared with us today. Thank you.
Beryl, I've put our both our email address and our phone number in the chat. If you'd like to write those down before today's session ends, just because the chat will disappear when I end the meeting. But
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome to give us a call anytime during the business day. Uh, just not overnight, but into the evening as well. If there's ever anything you need, just give us a call or shoot us an email. I can connect you with Sharon, and you guys can email back and forth or set up a time to chat on the phone as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions? I think if those are if those are all the questions, then maybe we'll wrap up a little bit. Um, yeah, so thank you so much, Sharon, for taking the time to speak to us today. I know that I always appreciate every time you come and share a bit with us. It's like I'm hearing something that I meant to hear in this moment on this day. So, you know, Masicho, Miigwech, thank you so much. And for our participants, if there's any follow-up questions that you might have, I know sometimes while you're listening, you're kind of in the moment, and then you know later on in the day or later on in the week you think of a question. You're more than welcome to shoot us an email. I'll connect you with Sharon, and she can answer any of your questions. And just a reminder of our feedback survey. If there's any other teachings that you would love to hear in the future, Sharon is a wealth of knowledge. She has many teachings. She'll be back to share with us later this week, I believe. Yeah, on Thursday she'll be back with us to share about evolving traditions, which I think are about how, you know, how we conduct ceremonies and traditions in a changing world. I think with COVID especially, it'll be very relevant, I think. So you're all welcome to join us then as well. Tomorrow we have Martha Pete. She's an Inuk elder from Toloyoak. She, up in the high Arctic, she'll be joining us to share some stories about living up north. And then on Friday, we have Sundance teaching with Wally Chartrand. So Wally's another one of our knowledge keepers that has come and shared with us many times. But yeah, I think we'll end it there. Sharon, do you have any last final words?
Well, all I can say is that when you're going through your own healing, for those of you that choose to go through your healing, remember if you happen to fall, never give up. Just pick yourself up, get back on that road, dust yourself off, and keep going. One of these days you'll get it straight. Myself too, I used to get tired. I used to fall off that wagon all the time. Finally, one day I just got tired of falling off the wagon. So I just lit up a match and I burned the wagon. So they call me a wagon burner now, and I'm happy. All right. Yeah. So just and forgive yourself for anything that you may have done. Okay. It's not worth holding on to the negative stuff.
Yes, that's so true. Be kind to yourself. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your week. Take time to smudge today if you need to. Be kind to your mind, body, and spirit. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.